Welcome, everyone. I am so glad you're here. I'm Jennifer Marshall, and I'm the co-founder and executive director of This Is My Brave. I thought my life was over when I learned I had mental illness 14 years ago at the age of 26. For me, that rock bottom was the beginning of what would become something beautiful, only I didn't know it at the time. At the time, I wondered if life were worth living. Active Minds, the leading suicide prevention nonprofit on college campuses, reports that 39% of college students experience a significant mental health issue, and 2/3 of students with anxiety or depression do not seek treatment. With suicide currently the second leading cause of death among our young adults, This Is My Brave couldn't sit on the sidelines any longer. We've launched our college pilot program through an inspiration grant from Alkermes and through the generous support of the Ruderman Family Foundation, because we believe we can save lives by shining a light on true, inspiring stories of recovery from students who are not only surviving, but thriving despite mental health challenges. This is our very first production made up of all college students. These incredible students, who I didn't even get a chance to say hello to yet because I flew in from DC earlier, but they have come together to bring their stories of resilience and hope to the stage because they know that their stories have the power to encourage their peers not to give up. It gets better. Help is out there. By opening up the conversation about mental health through storytelling, we're breaking down those unfair societal pressures that tell us perfection is key. It's okay not to be okay. By telling our stories, we normalize the fact that our brains get sick sometimes too. And we need to be there for each other by having these real, honest conversations about how we're doing. Our Brave cast tonight is joining our community of storytellers from all over the US and Australia who've decided to be brave and put their stories out there. Over 750 of them who have shared their heartbreaking, inspiring stories on our stages in 61 plus shows so far. It's our mission to get to a place where we no longer have to call it brave for talking openly about mental health issues. We believe it should simply be called talking. Please join me in welcoming to the stage our producer of This Is My Brave's College Edition, Elizabeth Driscoll. Oh gosh, it's so nice to see all of you guys. So welcome to This Is My Brave College Edition. And thank you for coming to see these performers share their remarkable stories. We are debuting on World Mental Health Day to highlight the reality that nearly 40% of college students experience a significant mental health issue. And by attending tonight's performance, you are helping to expand the conversation of mental health to college campuses. We need students to know that it's okay to struggle and it's okay to ask for help. We are here to help you, and you are not alone. Auditions for tonight's show began this past March, and these young adults have been working really hard, preparing the show that you are about to witness. They spent the last 8 months editing and revising their performances, rehearsing for countless hours, building relationships with each other, and spreading the word by social media about their journey to this evening, all at the same time while being full-time students. I am so proud of these performers for their energy, their dedication, and bravery to ensure that mental health is an integral part of college campuses. It's been a joy for me to work with these amazing performers. We are very grateful to the Ruderman Family Foundation and to Alkermes for generously sponsoring such an important event to end the shame and stigma surrounding mental illness. We would like to thank Isabel Olson from Lesley University for being a huge part of making this happen. She's been with us every step of the way. Thank you, Isabel. We would also like to thank Lesley University as a whole for hosting us this evening and for leading by example in encouraging regular conversations on college campuses about mental health. Now, please help me welcome to the stage the debut cast of This Is My Brave's College Edition.
This program would not be possible without the generous support of a grant from the Ruderman Family Foundation and an Alkermes Inspiration Grant.
We extend a special thank you to Jim Dillon of Caxton Media for his videography skills.
We'd like to thank our incomparable and invaluable volunteer, Audrey Grubb.
The show would not be possible without the generous support of all of our sponsors and volunteers.
We thank you from the bottom of our hearts.
We invite you to take out your cell phones. We're a very social organization, and we'd like you to take lots of pictures, videos, and selfies.
Share these on your social media sites. Make sure to use the hashtag Storytelling Saves Lives, and don't forget to tag @ThisIsMyBrave.
What you're about to experience defines what it means to live brave. And we need your help to tell the world that we're here. So share away.
Now would also be a good time to make sure your phone is turned to silent for the duration of the show.
Before we get started, we need to thank our national sponsors, Janssen, Synovian, Sage Therapeutics, and Alkermes. So we're going to take you on a journey tonight. You will laugh and you will cry. You will be enlightened and you will be inspired, because this is the reality. 1 in every 3 college freshmen struggle with a mental illness. And 1 in 4 young adults, ages 18 to 24, experience a mental illness. But because we don't talk about mental illness, people often suffer in silence. This changes right now, right here on this stage. We're shining a light on mental illness to show the world that we are your friends, your family members, the co-captain of your club soccer team, the girl who sits across from you in your English class, and even your professors and mentors. We hope that through our storytelling, you will better understand mental illness and will be able to be supportive to those in your life who may experience it. It's a privilege to sit in the audience and take in these powerful stories. You may feel a piece of yourself reflected in the stories shared this evening. We've had audience members tell us after the show that they never realized they dealt with anxiety or depression until hearing from our storytellers, and this is the first step towards finding help. In the playbook, there's a link to a mental health screening through our partnership with Mental Health America. It's a great way to get a read on your own mental health, and you can take the information you find there to a provider. So if you need to step out at any point during the show, please feel free to do so. Doug Weisskopf from Lesley University Counseling Center is here to help. He's up there in the back row. So let's get started. Please welcome to the stage our first brave college storyteller performing I Could Have Sworn, Sarah Horowitz.
When I was a kid, I used to hate summers. Now, I hadn't always hated them. Summers used to mean camping in Bar Harbor and surviving off a diet of Spam. It used to mean swimming at the local pool and unintentionally becoming queen of the belly flop. It used to mean sweaty popsicles and sticky fingers, razor scooters and secret playhouses, hours of tanning and subsequent aloe vera all over my body. That is, until my dad had a midlife crisis and added an additional member to our family. Her name was the Lost Retainer. She was 41 foot, hunter sailboat, that was my father's eternal pride and joy. Now, she was a behemoth of a ship with wide hips and billowing sails and a lazy confidence due to her sheer size and weight. Summers changed when she arrived. They went from summer camps and sleepovers to 2-week sailing trips down the northeast coast. For many reasons, things weren't great. I mean, you have a pretty dysfunctional family, marooned on a boat in the middle of the ocean. It's like putting a bunch of firecrackers in a box and shaking it. But things weren't all bad, since we would dance to Jimmy Buffett, and I quickly learned all the words to Cheeseburger in Paradise, since it was my dad's boat, who lived off my dad's diet, spaghetti and Toblerone. My dad put all the sails out, and would heel at such an angle you can almost kiss the waves. My mom was screaming in terror the entire time, which we thought was hilarious. And then an accident happened one summer, right about here. We become too comfortable with Mother Nature, taking her for granted and never taking her seriously. So one day, she gave us a little reminder. I remember wind. It was wind. A lot of wind. Now, there are a couple big issues with PTSD. One of them has to do with verbal memory. Now, during a stressful event, your amygdala acts as an alarm bell to signal to your body to fight, flight, or freeze. Now, this alarm bell is sent to many places, including the prefrontal cortex, which can evaluate the amygdala's threat signal and can dampen it if the threat isn't actually dangerous. But in individuals with PTSD, not only is the amygdala in overdrive, but the prefrontal cortex and brain areas essential to language are shutting down. Now, what does this mean? Essentially, I can physically and emotionally re-experience my trauma in the forms of flashbacks, dissociations, nightmares. I have a really hard time explaining to you exactly what happened. The sting of rain against my face, that orange shirt I was wearing, clinging to my body, drenched, shrill of the wind as it hits metal, the sound of mom screaming, like truly screaming. I'd never heard that before. It sounded tinny, sharp. I'd imagine that's what helplessness sounds like. The feeling of the textured deck underneath my curled toes, the smell of the ocean when it's vengeful. It smells like salt and petrichor, buried things in anger. Oh shit, he said. The sky, black. Shaking of the waves and the sound they make like a boom and then a sizzle, crackling and burning, the tipping of the boat in water, too much water, so much water, I'm alone, so alone, gravity. Now, another big issue with PTSD, something called memory fragmentation. Now, during a stressful event, your hippocampus, which is in charge of long-term memory storage as well as contextualizing events, is dysregulated. This means that memories concerning chronology, context, time, place are not being stored. Now, I remember elements of the event, flashes of memories, but nothing is sequential, outline, focused, until certain things are too real, too focused, intrusive. The brain is going back to the trauma and playing the memory over and over again, trying to make out the narrative beneath the confusion, unable to get out of the loop as it stumbles, stops, and then skips back again. So we're sailing somewhere. And at some point, the sky went dark, like black. And I remember being alone. No, Dad, I was alone. I remember being alone. I think I remember. And I remember the feeling of rain and darkness. I don't remember which came first. And my toes on the floor of the boat deck. Mom, she's screaming. It's like tin sharp. I could have sworn that's what helplessness sounds like. Orange shirt sticking to my stomach. Oh shit, you said. I'm alone. I thought the sails ripped. Maybe they didn't. Maybe it was just my skin that tear, but I don't remember blood. Maybe it was just a page from my brain. A chapter of my cortex ripped and thrown into the ocean, or maybe it was a little piece of myself floating on sea foam and drowned. We're sailing them. We're sailing somewhere. Every time I got back on the boat after that summer, the accident would happen over and over and over again. A small lean of the hull, and I felt the boat tipping into the sea, winds over 10 miles per hour, and we were back to sailing out of control. Ripples from deep seas, rain clouds into hurricanes, a breeze into gale force winds. A small nudge, memory, fling me back into that broken day. And I couldn't remember anything, but I could remember everything. But most of all, I had absolutely no control. I hated how out of control my brain and body had become under the beck and call of my trauma, so I controlled what I could. I developed an eating disorder, and with social anxiety and depression close to follow. So many of these things tie together into an intricate, fragmented web. It's hard to find the source of it all. And then there comes a point where it doesn't really matter how it started, but that it's there, all of it. And it's choking me. So, as I entered college, my trauma came with me. A real interesting dynamic duo. But when I attended my first neuroscience course and the teacher started to discuss PTSD, things took a sharp turn. I started to find out what was going on with my brain, what was happening to my body, that there were people like me out there and the people doing something about it. Neuroscience validated my experience the way my friends, my family, I myself couldn't. It gave me words to an experience I wasn't able to verbalize. It gave me a language to speak and to comprehend. It made me understand that this wasn't my fault. That I wasn't just being dramatic. That I wasn't making things up. My experience, all of our experiences are real, valid, subjective, and true. So this summer just passed, kind of like summers now. I spent these past months taking physics to finish up my pre-med requirements and then apply to medical school. I'm doing research concerning the neuroscience of PTSD. I am volunteering with organizations dedicated to providing aid for individuals with trauma-related disorders. And I'm here, speaking with you all. I remember the first time I tried to share my trauma with someone, my words stolen, my memories broken, and the response I got was skepticism, doubt, disbelief. There are so many barriers, neurological, psychological, sociocultural, that keep individuals from speaking out, getting support, receiving empathy and validation. But please, just believe. Believe the things I cannot say. Believe the things you cannot see. And believe that I am brave, because I truly, deeply, genuinely and courageously am. Next up, I'm performing Darling Me is Ai Bui.
Hi, I'm a third-year architecture student at MIT. I'm a designer, an occasional drunk dancer, and a dork. I'm I. I, as in I, the decoration of one's ego, the simplest form of acceptance of oneself. I, as in the Chinese word for love. I, as in the fusion of these two meanings, as in loving myself, as in me. I've grown into my name after countless and countless battles. 6 years of anorexia, 2 bulimia, almost 10 of depression and anxiety, and most recently, chronic PTSD, thanks to repeated sexual assaults by a trusted authority. In all these years, I've fought myself to nothing but blood, vomit, skin, and bone. In all these years, I've just wanted to vanish to become air. But thankfully, and apparently, I seem to be pretty indestructible. So in order to celebrate this superpower of mine, I decided to write myself a song. Now this song comes purely from instincts, my heart, maybe a couple of YouTube ukulele tutorials, since I have zero professional experience or training in music whatsoever. But I figured it wouldn't hurt to try. After all, I wouldn't be here in front of you alive without trying. All these lonely days, tears rolling down your face. All these lonely years, burying in your fears. All these darkest times, wondering if you'll survive. All this imaginary crowd, screaming in your mind so loud. Darling me, your bones eating at your skin, your scars are still bleeding. Darling me, you're wondering where you are, you're wondering who you are. Who you are. If you're far from who you are. Darling me, don't you worry. Darling me, one day you'll be happy. Darling me, don't you worry. Darling me, one day you'll be free. One day you will love me. Da 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 da, darling me. Da 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 da, darling me. All these sleepless nights, why are you still running when there's no light? All these breathless blackouts, why are you still screaming when there's no sound? All these numbing breakdowns, finding your peace, never to be found, doing what you thought you did best, filling up your emptiness. Darling me, your bones eating at your skin, your scars are still bleeding. Darling me, you're wondering where you are, you're wondering who you are. Who you are. If you're far from who you are. Darling me, don't you worry. Darling me, one day you'll be happy. Darling me, don't you worry. Darling me, one day you'll be free. One day you will love me. Da 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 da, darling 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 me. One day performing my bipolar story is Ludwig.
Hi guys, my name is Josh Ludwig and this is my mental health story. It was September of 2018 and the beginning of my freshman year at Boston University when I experienced my first bipolar manic episode with psychosis. The week before college, I was struggling with extreme anxiety and depression, the worst of my life up to that point. The whole idea of being on my own and having to make new friends terrified me. However, as soon as I got to Boston, the energy of the city and being on campus was exciting enough to push away my nerves. Suddenly, I started to feel a whole lot better about being in college. I got involved in a community service orientation program at BU called FISOP, which stands for First Year Student Outreach Program. During FISOP, we volunteered around Boston, helping local schools get ready for the school year and helping the Alzheimer's Foundation with outreach and organizational work. I started making friends during FISOP and feeling comfortable. Then a crazy coincidence happened when one of the upperclassmen leaders in the group and I discovered that we had both lost our brothers to heart conditions. Both brothers were named Michael and both brothers were under the age of 10. This coincidence set me off and I thought this was proof that we were living in a simulation. This could have been a possible early sign of psychosis. I instantly posted a picture with the upperclassman leader and explained the situation to my Instagram. I spent money promoting the post because I thought that I could become Instagram famous. I thought that we were going to go on the Ellen show and I thought that we were going to go on TV because my friend's uncle was the president of CNN. Over the course of that week, I started talking a lot more than I normally did, which is a symptom of mania. I felt superior to those around me, another symptom of mania. At some point, I even started to feel euphoric. As my time at BU went on, I spent all-nighters talking to security guards on my dorm or exploring Boston late at night after engaging in risky behaviors. I also suddenly wanted to transfer into the business school. Next, I met a YouTuber at a BU party. As soon as I saw her, I ran up to her to tell her my life story, about my brother, other famous YouTubers, and the latest YouTube gossip. We took pictures and she even added me on Snapchat, which I thought was the coolest thing at the time. When you are experiencing mania, you have no filter and say exactly what's on your mind. As a result, I captioned pictures with this YouTuber saying that she looks better in person, which was rude and is something I regret. A day or two later, one of my brother's childhood friends, who was an upperclassman at BU, gave me something of an intervention where he told me that this YouTuber was speaking negatively about me, most likely because of my strange and rude Instagram captions on photos with her. This made me furious, which can be another symptom of mania, and I decided that I was going to threaten to leave BU and move to California unless she got expelled. Now I realize there are nearly 20,000 students at BU and a waitlist, so they probably wouldn't miss me too much if I left. My mom saw a specific post on my Instagram and called Student Health Services on me. The post was one of me and the YouTuber, and the caption said that I had contemplated suicide. When I got to Student Health Services, I told the counselor of my plans to go to California unless the YouTuber got expelled. I also said I wanted to go to California to become famous, a social media influencer, and I thought that taking down a YouTuber would help get me there. This is called grandiosity, and you guessed it, this is another symptom of mania. So I started posting warnings on my Instagram, telling the YouTuber to leave campus or I would. Obviously, she didn't leave, so I called an Uber to Logan Airport, blasting my favorite song and anthem, Party in the USA, along the way. I bought a first-class plane ticket to Los Angeles, but once I got to the airport, I realized the date for the flight wasn't for 2 weeks, so I bought another first-class plane ticket to San Francisco, where I thought I could stay with my mom's cousin. Excessive spending in a short period of time is also characteristic of a manic episode. I went through security and got to my gate, where I met a mom. I started live streaming on my Instagram with her, and someone even made a fan account for her, so we must have been pretty entertaining. As I was live streaming, the BU police accosted me at the airport, telling me that I was being involuntarily sectioned, which meant that I had no choice but to go with them. Looking back, I should have been terrified, but the mania gave me so much adrenaline that I wasn't even scared. The police were sectioning me because of the post I mentioned where I said I had contemplated suicide. The police thought I was a potential harm to myself, so I was brought to a hospital and in an ambulance from the airport where I underwent a psych evaluation. I was then sent to a mental hospital where I was diagnosed bipolar 1 with psychotic features. I had to take a year-long medical leave from BU, and during that year, I underwent inpatient and outpatient mental health treatment. 1 month ago, I returned to BU as a freshman. Now the things that I have in place that will help keep me healthy include medication, a psychiatrist and therapist, and lots of strategies to take care of myself. I'm ready to start fresh. To this YouTuber, I'd like to formally apologize for everything I put you through. You deserve none of it, and I hope you understand that my behaviors were a reflection of my mental health. The reason I'm sharing this revealing story is so more people know what mania looks like, so it can get caught earlier on. Neither I nor my family really knew what mania was before my manic episode. So even though I cringe heavily when I tell this embarrassing story, I hope I can help to raise awareness and break the stigma of bipolar disorder and mental illness as a whole. Thank you. Up next, performing Book Club of Our Generation is Ai Bui.
Hello. I did tell Elizabeth I would try to throw a couple jokes in mine, but what I think is super funny is having a clinically anxious person perform, which is like undoubtedly the most anxious-inducing thing you can do. But here goes nothing. My story is pretty common. It starts like most. I got nervous in high school. I would get worried about a lot of things. I'd get worried about regular things like an upcoming test or keeping up with the latest trends, which I was never really good at. Like, someone please explain to me why Crocs are coming back into fashion. I can tell you. But I would also get worried about small things, and I usually couldn't figure out why they made me so anxious. Just like going to work every week or trying to pick out an outfit before school seemed impossible. Like, even in high school, I couldn't pick out an outfit, and back then you could wear anything as long as it was neon. Spoiler alert, I had anxiety and depression, but I didn't know that in 10th grade. The only thing I knew for certain back then was the Pythagorean theorem, which I definitely use every day in my real life right now. I realized I had anxiety when a really good friend of mine pulled me aside in the hallway at school and said, "Allie, I have to tell you something. It's kind of personal." She was clearly very nervous, so in my head I was like, oh wow, she's about to tell me something really big. I really hope she's not going to pull me aside and try to recruit me to sell makeup online. That would have been tough for me because I'm very anti-pyramid scheme, but very pro-local business. Thankfully, she was not with Avon. She told me, "Allie, I've been going to therapy for a while now, and it's great. My therapist helps me work through all of my emotions, but the reason I want to talk to you is because I've noticed a lot of the symptoms I have in you. And I just want to let you know that if you need anything, I'm here for you." That was undoubtedly difficult for her to share, but I'm so glad she did because it changed my life. I re-examined myself, I re-examined what I needed, and within the next few months, I started going to therapy and I started taking antidepressant medications. It was like my own personal eat, pray, love. Eventually, things started looking and feeling a lot better. There were ups and downs throughout high school. It was like a roller coaster. Actually, it was a lot like a roller coaster because there was that one time when I threw up after a cross-country race. My opinion is running is bad for you. Changed my mind. But after high school, I was really excited to move away from home when I started college. It was this great new chapter in my life, and I thought it would be a great idea to start this new chapter and change things even more drastically by not continuing therapy, which in hindsight does not make sense. But my rationale was I would be too far away from home to commute to my therapist, and finding someone new on campus just felt like a chore. And the last thing a freshman college student wants to do is a chore. So September went well my freshman year, but by October, inevitably, I was struggling. And I couldn't figure out why. I would have bad days for no reasons at all. I remember one day in particular, it was beautifully sunny outside. It was ahead of the Charles Regatta, which is like some boat sport thing. I don't really even know land sports, so could not tell you much more than that. But the main attraction, at least for me, was this line of vendor tents along the river. They were giving out all sorts of like merchandise and free food samples. It was like grocery shopping on a college budget. Love that. I was walking around and even tried one of those like LaCroix fizzy water things, and I was like, I'm so fancy with my free LaCroix. It was great. It was a great day. Once things wound down, I started walking back to my dorm, which was only about a half mile away. But sometime during that walk, I just started crying and could not figure out why. Was I sad? Was I angry? Did I just need a Snickers bar? In hindsight, it's easy for me to see that I had depression and was just not getting the same level of help that got me through high school. But I didn't realize it in that moment. On that day, sitting on that sidewalk, I was just there crying, thinking, wow, like, I must be allergic to LaCroix or something. That was all I could think of. But within a few weeks, I realized that I needed to get back into therapy. So I went to the mental health center on campus. And given the limited resources and high demand of their office, they were able to make me feel better and set me on the right track. Now, some of my closest friends have been with me since before I started my journey with anxiety and depression. So they've seen me at my lowest points. And that really demonstrates how my friends are great people. If you're gonna be friends with someone who bursts out crying on a sunny day just because there's like big boats in the water, you have to be a great human being. I really owe my friends, I don't know, like a pizza or something. My friends tell me that the person I am today is completely different than the person I was a year ago. Maybe because I've somehow only gotten worse at words with friends. But maybe it's because I seem to enjoy life a lot better. And I make life more enjoyable for the people around me, which is incredibly rewarding. Today, seeing the abundance of students on campuses that take advantage of resources provided by the Mental Health Center makes me happy that people are addressing the issue of mental health and they're willing to talk about it. It's so common to be in therapy now. It's like the book club of my generation. Like, my grandmothers, they're both off at Bridge Club. Moms are all at book club, sipping wine, reading the latest 50 Shades of Grey. And then millennials are literally all in therapy. It's awesome. I become a mental health advocate in my peer group on campus and at home. I love being the person that someone can turn to when they have a question about anxiety or depression, or they just need someone to vent and listen. Now I'm the friend that's giving advice about anxiety, which is way better than the friend selling makeup on Facebook. Up next is Allie Gold performing We Fall, We Fight, We Rhyme.
I still remember hearing my phone ring. I saw her name light up on my screen. My stomach dropped and my gut twisted inside of me. It was my friend, Emily. I picked up and listened, but through her sobs and hyperventilating, I could barely comprehend what she was saying. I breathed silently. I'm here, I'm listening. You're gonna be okay. Where are you? She told me that she had overdosed. She then got into her car and while driving, vomited all over herself in the steering wheel. Emily told me I was her first call. She cried and told me she didn't know what to do. I instructed her to pull the car over, park on a side street. I called 911 and asked her to stay on the phone with me until I found her. Thank you for calling me, Em. Hang in there. I held Emily's hand in the ambulance. Now she lied in her emergency room bed. She feebly muttered that she felt scared, guilty, and ashamed. 3 years ago, at the age of 21, I helped save my best friend's life. I know that stories often end here, and a person's life is miraculously saved. Unlikely hero walks away with people thanking them, shaking their hands, pats on the back, commending them via social media. That isn't my story. I was not unlikely. On that day, 3 years ago, I helped save my best friend's life because I had been in a very similar situation just 3 years before that, in 2013. I was a newly minted high school graduate at the time, a young, burnt out, high-achieving, and anxious individual who spent the last 2 years living between divorced parents' houses and the beds of various psychiatric treatment facilities. I felt lost, overwhelmed, ashamed, and unfulfilled. Fortunately, I worked with incredible, inspiring mental health counselors and phenomenal caring treatment teams. I was fortunate to work with people who didn't give up on me, even at times when I wanted to give up on myself. 6 years ago, at 2 a.m. on a fall morning in 2013, I overdosed on prescription pills. I wrote a suicide note to comfort and apologize to my family and friends. I wanted to escape the endless cycle of shame, guilt, feeling like a burden. Inside my mind, I had convinced myself that everyone would be happier without me. I got in my car and drove away, still unable to comfort and apologize to myself. My first call was to my psychiatrist. I wanted someone to know where I was and what had happened. Dr. Murray reminded me how profoundly detrimental my suicide would be to my sister, brothers, parents, and friends. Even my drug-induced numbness could not prevent a waterfall of tears. He reminded me that I mattered. That's what I needed, connection and purpose. He encouraged me to pull over, sending an ambulance to my location, saving my life. Initially, while hospitalized, I refused to see my family. Shame and remorse inundated me. I was protecting them from seeing me at my lowest. Eventually, I let my parents visit because it was actually hurting them more that they couldn't stand next to my hospital bed, comfort me, and hold my hand. Fortunately, after my attempt, I reestablished my passions and drive to create a new sense of self. It wasn't easy, but I had amazing people who supported me every step of the way. Recently, Dr. Murray reminded me that, quote, history doesn't repeat itself, but it often rhymes. The Mark Twain quote further inspires me to inspire others. The parallels of how Dr. Murray helped save my life and how I, in turn, saved Emily's 3 years later left me determined to use my experiences as a platform to help others who struggle. With a clear direction on my values, capabilities, and aspirations, I was eager to utilize these experiences to help me in my career. I wanted to reduce the stigma around mental illness and promote healing for others. I wanted to get involved in my community and make a difference. My mantra has always been inspire and be inspired, and that is exactly what I hoped to do. Okay, fast forward 3 years later, 2019. I'm standing in the back stairwell of a psychiatric treatment center. The lights are flickering, the smell is familiar. A young girl is lying on the floor with her hands covering her face, flooded with tears. Why does it matter? She asks. I don't want to live. I don't matter. It's hopeless. I kneel beside her and inhale and exhale deeply. While her palms shelter her face, I glance at the right side pocket of my navy blue scrubs. There's a badge. It has a photo of me wearing a big smile, and underneath the words residential counselor. The name of the hospital is familiar to me. I had been a patient there before when I was a teenager. Actually, I'd been a patient there twice. I remember feeling overwhelmed, lonely, ashamed, and defeated during those times. I remember the physical and emotional pain so intense it was hard to move. It was hard to think. It was hard to ask for help. It was hard to hope. I gently returned my gaze back to the young girl lying on the floor. In a soft yet confident voice, I say, "You matter." I validate her experience, acknowledging that in this moment she's feeling a lot of strong emotions and that it's okay to have a lot of strong feelings. It's a part of the human experience. It's a part of the journey. She looks up from her hands, wearing red, swollen, tearful eyes, and wipes her face with her sleeve. I tilt my head to align with hers. After moments of silence, I tell her, there are people, even some people who work in the mental health field, who have also had really tough times. And some of these people have also felt super overwhelmed and felt like they wanted to give up. These people are here today, doing amazing things in the world, living meaningful lives, because there were people in their lives that didn't give up on them, even at times when they wanted to give up on themselves. I can't imagine how tough things feel right now. What I can say is I hear you, and I also believe in you. You're worth it, you're possible, you matter. I have hope for her future, and I'm so grateful that I now have hope for mine. History continues to rhyme, and I'm learning that these shared experiences, the roller coaster of emotions, the highs, the lows, these are what connect us. These moments are invaluable when we're able to be authentic, compassionate, and vulnerable. I'm finishing up my bachelor's degree. I work in a mental health focused research lab, and I'm interning as a peer advocate and employed as a mental health counselor in a psychiatric hospital where I was a patient twice. I have the opportunity to inspire people because I've been so blessed to have been inspired by so many incredible people who never gave up on me, even at times when I wanted to give up on myself. So history doesn't repeat itself, but it often rhymes. I don't know about you, but I think it's time for our rhymes to include our authentic experiences, the challenges and the victories with mental health. I'm driven to create a ripple effect of eradicating shame around mental illness, replacing it with heightened self-worth and an ability to empower others. It's time to connect, to inspire, and to be inspired. Thank you. Next is Meg McCarney performing Traditions.
Anyone who knows me will tell you that I love love. I love love so much that Valentine's Day is my favorite holiday, and I'll get into an unnecessarily passionate debate with anyone who says it's just Hallmark's excuse to sell more cards, even if I know it is. I love the idea of love, and I love it in actuality. Now, this isn't an essay about love, but it's about the essence of love at its core, what I know to be true. How things fuse together and become intertwined. How chemicals react and trip up the brain, and suddenly nothing makes sense. How we fall into patterns and people, and slowly that becomes our life. One day, seasonal affective disorder, more commonly known as seasonal depression, fell in love with me. It's a difficult relationship, one that started to take over a part of my life, one that is impossible to end no matter how toxic it gets because depression is in my brain. She is me. We've been attached at the hip for 3 years now. She hand delivers my traditions every fall. Seasonal affective disorder shows up differently in everyone, but for me, that means I suddenly have very low energy and motivation. Normally, I'm an involved and engaged person, but in the fall, my passion for the activities that I love becomes something that I have to struggle every day
to hold on to. I have difficulty regulating my moods and keeping my life in order. There's a noticeable shift in the way I behave as soon as depression arrives for the season. I get frustrated and upset for seemingly no reason. Dragging myself out of bed in the morning becomes grueling. She arrives half past September and reminds me to lower my expectations. My summertime optimism will be carried away with the autumn breeze. The easier I succumb to the inevitable, the easier it will be for me to move on. This is my life now, she tells me. A downward slope, straight into the ocean. I usually believe her. But last fall was a little different. Halfway through, I decided that I wanted to start playing my life by my own rules. I was no longer content with the passenger seat because my life, by all accounts, got better. I started going to college. I was living in the city, my favorite place. I met new friends who had the best intentions and wanted to understand what I was going through. I fell in love with somebody. My family and I grew closer than ever before. So, I allowed the unthinkable to happen. I challenged my depression's idea of love, that it had to be all or nothing, her or them, a choice. I grew suspicious of the false promises she gave me about how good my life could be if I just stayed inside, alone. I didn't want to be inside anymore. I wanted to be out there, with my favorite people. Suddenly, I couldn't tell why I was so upset. Whether it was just a symptom of my depression or because living with her was making living with everybody else so painful. Mental illness, at times, makes you feel unlovable. So when you have people around you, holding your hand and proving that false, you want to protect those moments forever. When you have someone look you in the eye, tell you the one thing that makes you most beautiful is the overwhelming capacity of your heart despite everything that's hurt you, you want to fight to make that feeling stay. You get angry. You want to fight every single day against your brain. So I did. Slowly, I began to resist the urge to sleep the day away. I fought against depression's pleas to call out of work. I invited friends to lunch. I took walks by myself and forced myself to face my discomfort. I started to become an active participant in life again. It was terrifying and physically draining, but I know it was worth it. I can't tell you that depression is curable. I can't tell you that there is a one-size-fits-all solution because life, and especially mental illness, is rarely ever that simple. Mental illness cannot ever be truly eradicated. It is a soundtrack that will follow me throughout my life. At times, it's faded in the background. Other times, it reaches a crescendo. I have to follow these ups and downs and try my best to understand them. They are a part of who I am. I can't scare my seasonal depression away. I just have to show her that I can put up a fight. The people I love fueled the fire that led that fight. They really did and continue to, every day. They are the reason I'm inspired to be so brave and challenge my mental illness for the very first time in my life. But it took a lot of strength to do the things I did. No one else had to see the painful inner workings of my progress, sobbing on the way to work, the physical pain and aching I felt as I forced myself to make plans and follow through with them, feeling defeated on days when all I could do was give up.
I went against my own brain, my own body, and my own instincts. I'm the reason why I'm up here right now, doing something that probably would have been unthinkable a year ago. This fall, depression is still a part of me. She always will be. But now she knows that our relationship has limits and she can only grip me so tightly. I put my foot down and decided to really start living, despite having a mental illness. For myself, and for everybody that reminds me, every single day, why love is the best thing in the world. Thank you. And up next, performing a song for broken hearts is Sarah Armstrong.
One of the last things I remember before I left my public middle school was the tiles. I was just beginning 8th grade, and instead of being upstairs on the 4th floor with the yellow tiles where the 8th graders learned, I was on the 1st floor, in a classroom down a lonely hall of beige tiles with a mix of students in 6th to 8th grade. I knew I didn't belong here. Many of these students were prone to behavioral outbursts, while I was just desperately trying to do the classwork that the rest of the students were doing upstairs. I excelled in academics, but I needed a smaller environment to learn in. I was put here because I was scared. I was traumatized. Just a few months earlier, one of my teachers had trapped me inside an empty classroom and continuously screamed at me for a half hour. Unfortunately, it had affected me so much that I was placed in the 1st floor alt-ed classroom. 2 weeks into 8th grade, I left my public middle school in hopes to find a new school that was better accommodating. After spending over 45 horrid days at what was supposed to be a 45-day assessment program, I was placed at a school about an hour west of where I lived. This school was where I spent grades 8 through 11, and with each passing year, I slowly came to realize that this so-called therapeutic school was doing me much more harm than good. Instead of helping me through my challenges, the staff at the school shamed me for them and constantly gave me unnecessary monitoring. During my junior year, after losing many a close friendship, I had my lowest downfall, and I seriously questioned whether I would make it out okay. Thankfully, I transitioned out of that school for my senior year and was placed at another school about an hour north of my hometown. Here, I was welcomed and accepted, and the staff members fought alongside me to help me achieve my goals. And then, I got accepted to Lesley University. Not only that, but I was also accepted into their honors program. Once I got the letter in the mail with the acceptance and the 2 scholarships, I knew that there was a light at the end of the tunnel. I graduated on my 18th birthday, and since starting school at Lesley, I have been passionate in my studies. I have always wanted to be a teacher. I decided to major in special education because, looking back, my family and I had to go through so much to get the accommodations I needed for my emotional challenges. My biggest hope as a future teacher is that no child or their family should have to fight that hard for the accommodations they need. Additionally, I feel that my experiences will help me relate with special needs students and assist them in reaching their goals. I want to give my future students the care and the support that I failed to receive in middle school and most of high school. Unfortunately, I was not able to stay in public school because they were unable to accommodate my needs. What I want to get out of this speech, especially as a former student who struggled emotionally and a future special ed teacher, is that public school systems need to have a better grasp on how to accommodate students with special needs, specifically those with emotional disabilities, so that these students can have the option to stay in a mainstream school environment while feeling confident and appropriately accommodated. Because although I value the time I spent in my therapeutic high schools, I still had to take an hour-long bus ride to and from school every day, and I missed out on events at my public school, such as prom and senior week. Although it was upsetting that I missed out on these events, I do appreciate the constant support I received then and now. I have been blessed with a wonderful support team, including family members, aunts and uncles, cousins, friends, teachers, therapists, one of my closest friends who has given me constant support since middle school, The new and long-lost friends I made at Lesley who have made college so much more enjoyable, you know who you are, and my amazing boyfriend who has been with me through my accomplishments and my downfalls for almost 4 years. I don't know what I would have done without them. But despite all the support, I will always have my challenges. At this point, I accept that, but I have grown so much since all those years ago. I may not have been able to spend 8th grade in the hall with the iconic yellow tiles, and I may not have gone to public high school, but the therapeutic schools that I spent my time at helps me emotionally prepare for the post-high school world, so I can become the teacher I know I can be. In the end, I am willing to take on whatever will come my way in the future. This is my brave. And now I would love to share a song that I wrote that accompanies the speech. problem.
Hello. Okay, disclaimer, this afternoon was a bit wild and there was an incident and now I don't have glasses, so thank God for 18-point font, but still. If I squint at you, it's not personal. It's been a time, guys. Look, I have a Band-Aid. I should have gone to urgent care, but I'm here because I love this. So, you were rough. Listen, hello, my name's Amani. I'm from Boston and Wellesley. And now my family lives in Rye, New York, which is next to Greenwich, Connecticut, and they moved there because my sister wanted to play squash. For that, those of you who are like too long didn't listen, shut up, what are you talking about? That's basically I'm very New England preppy, which is very obvious from the unseasonably bright sweater that I'm wearing. I think I'm in denial. It is very much fall. Winter is coming. Okay, but speaking of fashion, Lily Pulitzer actually teaches us that through bright colors, we can kind of consistently exude happiness regardless of how we feel on the inside. And Sperry teaches us how to stroll through life like it's a beach, even when we're near catatonic from the crushing weight of our compounding responsibilities. Lululemon, or Lulu for those of us who buy too much of it, it allows us to hide our insecurities under very form-fitting, slimming, shaping athleisure in such a casual fashion that when we're supposed to be working on ourselves and improving, we don't even look like we're trying. It's kind of ridiculous if you think about it. So suffice to say that I have learned the teachings and internalized the aesthetic. I look a fool, it's fall, guys. So much that actually, according to one doctor, I might have effectively raised my physical and biochemical threshold for stress to the point where I don't even know that I'm anxious until I'm basically in a cold sweat. I don't acknowledge if somebody is attacking me, and I just kind of stand there and don't really know what I'm doing. If you know, you know. And it's kind of to the point where they think that my fight or flight is basically revving all the time, which is a little weird. But if you think about it, that's like, how is that for mental health is physical health, right? Okay. The thing is, I'm so good at this like classic, timeless, effortless perfection that sometimes I think that I've kind of ironed and tailored my personality into one of those bespoke Brooks Brothers shirts that they sell in the little kiosk at Head of the Charles. Weird, sad a bit. And I'm preppy, and I'm good at preppy, and I'm good at politicking and saying, oh wow, I love your dress. And I'm good at perfectionistic procrastination, and I'm very, very, very bad at therapy, which is something that is a real thing. I know everyone's like, you can't be bad at therapy. No, you can. You can, and I am, and it's a problem. And I found that out when I was in college because I went to see the psychiatrist for the first time, and it was not of my own volition. I was in the hospital for 2 weeks. I spent 2 weeks on the cardiac floor because I was suffering with broken heart syndrome, which is that thing where your heart exhibits all the symptoms of a heart attack as the result of stress. And it's what happens to old people when they lose the love of their life, and it's also what happens to very lame college freshmen when they overwork themselves trying to kind of create this perfect college experience. I too wish I could say that some senior boy broke my heart, but I'm pretty sure the tipping point was a math quiz, so let's let that sink in. In my defense, I did think it was supposed to be the best 4 years of my life, and I wanted to set the bar as high as possible. Anywho, the psychiatrist had me fill out this intake survey, and there was this one question in particular I don't think I'll ever forget. It asked me if I had any strategies that helped me get through the day. And I was like, haha, I know what this says. I'm a psych major. This is about self-care. No, I didn't. I was very hoodwinked and very wrong. I think maybe for somebody who is not struggling with issues, it is about self-care, but that was a trap. Anyway, I wrote some of my life hacks down. And one notable one being I take pictures of my outlets and my locked door every day before I leave, so I won't have a nervous breakdown when I'm halfway across campus and worried someone is going to break into my home or it will burn down. I left out how I'm super duperstitious. Like I make a wish on 11/11 every morning when I wake up. The first thing I say is Jackrabbit, because if not, I'm 100% sure something horrendous is going to happen. I'm pretty sure like these good luck rituals are just self-fulfilling prophecies, but it's important to note that rationality is frequently lost on me when it comes to we're going to continue calling them life hacks because that makes me feel good. As you can imagine, I have an egregious iPhone storage problem and a psychiatric problem. According to a psychiatrist, I have these obsessive thoughts that I deal with using compulsive actions or something, whatever. But according to my medical file, I'm just a little bit anxious, and I'm not really sure how I convinced him that I was okay enough that he didn't actually write anything down, but I did. I'm equally unsure as to how I convinced myself that I was okay and not to take 4 years of free therapy as a college student that I clearly needed, but I did. What? Okay, so I know why I did it though. I did it because I was busy. I didn't think I was going to get another shot at accomplishing everything on my college bucket list. I didn't feel like I had enough time to put my whole life on hold for the kind of intensive rewiring that I felt was necessary. I also didn't really have it in me to trust a random outsider. And I still don't. Yet. Probably will. Moving on. And that's kind of the foundation of a good therapeutic relationship. And apparently also of a functional romantic relationship, which is just nightmarish for me, but I digress. It's fine, I'm looking into hypoallergenic cats. The other reason that I did it was it didn't seem like enough of a problem. Like my family was really poor, we were on and off homeless. Like this one time we had a bat in our house, but we couldn't call animal control because we only had 3 walls and we didn't want to call social services. It was a thing. That was wild. And my mom, she was unemployed. She had limited options for employment. My sister was getting bullied at school, and my job was fine. And honestly, I feel a lot worse if I put anything on them that in my head I felt like I could at least attempt to handle. And if I could handle it, I should handle it. That's kind of the mentality we're going with. And overall, I would say that I did. I'm not quite ready to do a complete overhaul. But I have adapted. I have an online planner so I can change things without tearing out all of the pages of a $50 planner. That's a bad plan. It adds up very quickly. And I have a bunch of rituals with my friends so I won't randomly decide that they hate me. I'm sorry, guys. 4 a.m. is an inappropriate time to go, hi, do you hate me? It's wrong. I'm sorry. And I found a career path that I really, really love so I can kind of work like crazy without feeling burnt out, and I have productive hobbies that allow me to take time off from work and never feel like I'm wasting time, which is really, really important. I also use OneDrive so that I don't run out of storage on my phone. This is not an ad. I'm just like really excited about it. It's a very recent thing. There were definitely some very terrifying spirals, but I did graduate. I am at an acceptable BMI. I have a middling social life, which is a step up from no social life. Especially when you're an extrovert. It's sad, really sad. I handle my own expenses, and most importantly, I am planning for the future. I am worrying about the future, but I'm still planning for it, and that's a big deal for me. I've got health insurance. I have a job that has me contracted for an entire year, and I've updated my 10-page life plan. Please don't look at me like that. It's honestly the most normal thing that I do. Basically, I value my survival and by extension, my health. I believe that I'm going to be functional in a year, and I couldn't always say that. So that is an epic win. And before you all tell me that winning is not everything, I am from New England. This is what we do. Thank you. Whoa, this is not an 18-point font. Hold a minute. Our next performer is Mallory Gothelf performing What I Wish I Knew.
It is a moment in time that has been permanently etched into my memory. The passing of 4 years has done little to diminish its clarity. I remember sitting on the steps outside of the CVS on Mass Avenue. I remember staring blankly at the shoppers across the street at Whole Foods, watching how effortlessly they went about their day-to-day lives, desperately wishing for that sense of normalcy in my own. I remember the way the bitter Boston air nipped at my face, a chill not nearly as cold as the one I felt settle into my soul. I remember every painful thought I had. They came in rapid fire succession. Why do I have to hurt so deeply? Am I a burden to my family? Does my boyfriend even love me? Do I have friends? Why did I ever think I'd be cut out for college? Is life worth living? Why am I alive? And then the thoughts went quiet as a painful truth set in. I don't want to be alive. That's where the clarity of that moment ends. From there, it all became a montage of events so choppy, to this day, my memory still glosses over many of the details. I remember getting up from the steps. I remember going back to treatment the next day. I remember agreeing to a medical leave. I remember packing up my dorm. I remember walking through Logan Airport ready to head home for said medical leave. And I remember making a quiet promise to myself as I boarded the plane, a promise that this time would be different. This time I would engage in my recovery, and this time I owed it to myself to fight back. And here I stand, 4 years, 16 medications, a handful of therapists and psychiatrists, and a few stints in treatment later. The promise I made to myself has been tested, but remains unbroken. I went back to those same steps not too long ago. I wish I could end my story here and tell you I'd overcome my mental illness, and in that moment I felt as though my demons had been silenced. That wouldn't be the truth, though. Mental illness isn't something to conquer. I still struggle. I continue to have episodes, painful moments, and times where I come face to face with what feels like the end. And yet, standing on those steps, I couldn't help but feel a sense of pride wash over me, despite having to continue navigating life with a mental illness. I was standing on the very steps I never thought I'd get up from, and I was alive. You see, I know what it's like to feel like you're at the end of your rope. I know what it's like to have everyone around you telling you it will be okay and feeling as though that couldn't be further from the truth. I know what it feels like when you truly believe there is no way out. I want you to know that those feelings and experiences are valid and real. But I stand here today to tell you that's not where our stories have to end. I stand here to tell you that there is another side. And I stand here to tell you the things I wish I knew sitting outside CVS, the things I hope will stick with you if you ever find yourself in the throes of a mental illness. 1, you matter. Your voice matters. Your story matters. You deserve the space you take up. It's easy to let your illness tell you otherwise. In fact, I can almost guarantee at some point it will tell you otherwise. So I will repeat this mantra one more time for the negative thoughts lingering in the back of your mind. You matter. Your voice matters. Your story matters. You deserve the space you take up. 2, finding the right treatment isn't easy. It's a frustrating process that can involve countless medications, different therapies, hospital stays, and sometimes a Hail Mary attempt to try every bullet point that WebMD says will help treat your illness. With that being said, there is a treatment out there for you. Treatment has come a long way and only continues to evolve and improve. I know it's hard to go through the trial and error, but please hold on. The next treatment may be the one that changes your life. 3, you are worthy of love. Some, or maybe many days, you will find that hard to believe. But your illness, your story, and your pain do not make you unlovable. It makes you human. And being a human is messy and complicated. In fact, the pieces of you that you don't believe are worthy of love are often the pieces that connect us to one another. So if you haven't heard it today, I'll say it for you now. You are loved. 4, some days are going to flat out suck. Recovery isn't linear. It pains me to have to utter both of those sentences, but I want to be realistic. The days that suck aren't going to be forever, although they may feel like it. Find something to hold on to, big or small. There's no such thing as a stupid reason to live. Truthfully, it was often the voice of Michael Scott and the failing paper business Dunder Mifflin that gave me a reason to smile long enough to see another day. And 5, one day your illness may punch you in the face. Perhaps you won't duck the blow, but you'll connect a few punches of your own, suddenly realizing how strong you have become. What I'm really trying to say is you absolutely stand a chance in this fight. And if you ever need someone to tell you they believe in you and love you, I'll be more than happy to be your hype girl. Nobody should have to do this alone, and I never want anyone to be sitting on their version of the CVS sidewalk wondering if life is worth living. I can absolutely promise you, it is. Thank you.
With that, we'll get it in there next time, okay, Mallory? All right, so let's see here. We have one more performer this evening, and she is a two-time This Is My Brave alum, and she makes her living as a musician and as a mindset coach. So performing her new single that's coming out on November 1st, please welcome Hana Kahn singing Thrivers.
Hi. First of all, okay, thank you. Thank you for that entire experience. That was incredible. And seeing the perspective, it's just such a reminder for me that we're all people. We all have something going on behind the scenes because we're all people. And I really appreciate you guys making the space to share all of that, making the space for me to share my things. The song that I'm going to perform tonight, as Elizabeth mentioned, is coming out as a single November 1st. It's a song called Thrivers. I very much consider myself a thriver. I experienced 18 years of various traumas and 14 years of on and off suicidal ideation until a little over a year ago when I hit my rock bottom and I ended up hospitalized. And I finally decided to take my brain by the reins and rewire it. And I spent many months completely altering all of my belief systems until I created not only a life of recovery, but a life where it's my dream. It's my dream. My life is my dream. I have my dream career and my dream relationship, and I live in my dream space. And that's not all it takes to be a thriver. As much as I'm so proud to represent what's possible, what it means to be a thriver is to live, to show up every day, to show up even if you don't feel like you want to live. And that is the example that's shown here tonight. And that is where I have come from. When I used to share my story, it wasn't from a dream life perspective. It was, hey, I'm showing up, I'm here, and gosh, I don't want to be. Tonight, I need to dedicate this performance. I knew there were going to be a lot of tears. I found out this morning that a friend of mine passed in an accident. Her name was also Hana. She's the only other Hana I've met. And when we met, we were able to commiserate over people calling us Hana all the time. And she was someone who struggled with mental health. And she was someone who showed up. On her social media, she was a photographer, thousands of followers across the globe. And she would show up and she would share her story. The album art for Thrivers, I took at the Salt Plains in Utah when I was on tour this summer. I found them because she told me where to go to get the picture. She was a thriver for showing up with her mental health struggles and creating such beautiful art and creating a community for herself. So tonight's performance is for her, and this is Thrivers. You told me I'd always be a loser. You told me I'd always have to fall. You told me I'd always play the victim. Sorry, not sorry, 'cause you were wrong. You told her she'd always been dramatic. You told him he'd always lose the game. You told us we were not survivors. Guess what? We thrive today. We are invincible. So send us your worst. We're shouting from the rooftop, saying, watch me go. We're standing up, ready to explode. And when the time stops, jump into unknown. We're standing up, we're ready to show we are the thrivers of the world. Let's go. We are thrivers. We are thrivers. I told you I'd always been a dreamer. I told you I'd always wanted more. You told me I'd always fall apart. So now it's time to weave in the scorecards. We are invincible. So send us your worst. We're shouting from the rooftops, saying, watch me go. We're standing up, ready to explode. And when the time stops, jump into unknown. We're standing up, we're ready to show we are the thrivers of the world. Let's go. We are thrivers. We are thrivers. We are thrivers. Oh, we are thrivers. Oh, we are thrivers. Oh, we are thrivers. Let's go. We are thrivers. We are thrivers. We are thrivers. Thank you.
Thank you, Hana. That was beautiful. You rock. So, our brave cast was able to shine a light tonight on a topic that we don't talk about enough. We'd like to take our moment to ask our audience to be brave with us. And maybe we can actually turn on the side ones, yes. So we would like you to please stand up if you have experienced a mental health disorder or if you love someone who has. There you go. Thank you for doing that. We are all affected by mental illness, and simply by being here was an incredible start to building upon a movement of people who are willing to be more open and supportive to those who are struggling. We really thank Lesley University for partnering with us on this inaugural host for the college edition, and we hope that this will encourage more students to openly share their stories, because this is what it means to live brave. So the good news is we are performing this show again 3 more times on 3 more college campuses in the Boston area over the next 4 weeks. And then again, we're going to do another show, probably with some of this cast and hopefully a few new members in the spring at 4 other Boston area schools. And there's information about all of that in the playbill. And we are accepting auditions for future college age cast members. So if you or anyone you know would like to share your story on stage, we really want to hear it. We'd love to meet you in the lobby where we can gather and visit with some of our sponsors. But first, how about one more round of applause for our storyteller?